Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone from all over the world, and welcome to today's webinar offered by Solarplaza. My name is Nicola Belafatti. I'm a project manager at Solarplaza, and today's session is all about unlocking European market potential from from optimizing hybrid assets to grid-oriented VPPs. The webinar is part of the campaign of Solarplaza Summit Asset Management Europe, which is a European leading event when it comes to financial and technical asset management. It's taking place in Prague, in Czech Republic, in a bit more than a month, so on the 7th and 8th of October. Feel free to go on our website and have a look at the agenda if you're interested. For those who don't know us, I'll just give a very short introduction about Solarplaza. We were established in 2004, so we've been around for more than 20 years. We're based in the beautiful city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and we've organized more than 250 events, conferences all over the world. Our main focus is solar, so PV and energy storage, and we've managed to connect more than 60,000 solar PV professionals in more than 51 countries. If you're curious about our services and our products, have a look at our website, www.solarplaza.com. Besides the already mentioned event on asset management in Prague, here are some examples of our upcoming conferences. In Zagreb on the 21st of October, for instance, we have a Solarplaza Summit Balkans. And in Amsterdam on the 23rd of October, we have a summit on recycling renewables. Feel free to scan the QR code and have a look at the agenda if you're interested. All right, before we dive into the discussion and the topic of today's webinar, I would like to just share very quick practical notes from the audience online. If you have any questions during the session, please use the question mark box on the top right side of your screen. Type your question in, and then our speakers will address those questions at the end. Whereas if you have any technical issues, like you can't connect or your audio doesn't work, just use the chat box on the side of the screen, and my colleagues and I will help you immediately. All the presentations and the slides of this webinar will be available in a couple of days, and you will receive an email with instructions how to download it. Briefly about the agenda, where the intro is almost done, and soon our fantastic speakers, Amanda and Evangelos, will present for roughly 25 minutes. After that, there will be a short Q&A session of 5 to 10 minutes. So again, if you have any questions for the audience online, please use the question box on the top side of the screen. All right, now I would like to welcome our great speakers. Amanda Harrington, she's the Director of Product Marketing at Power Factors, and joining her from Greece, Evangelos Prosmitis is the Director of Sales Engineering also at Power Factors. Amanda, if you could turn your camera on, perfect, and also your audio, and you also have access to the slide deck.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to explore two of the most important themes shaping European renewables. First, how operators are optimizing hybrid assets to maximize performance and revenue. And second, how virtual power plants are emerging as a grid-oriented solution that connects assets together for greater reliability and market value. So we'll unpack what's driving these trends, what operators are aiming to achieve, and how EMS and VPPs are enabling new business models. Before we dive in, I'm Amanda Harrington, as Nicola said. I lead product marketing here at Power Factors. I'm joined by my colleague, Evangelos, and he is the Director of Sales Engineering, and together we'll connect the dots between technology, operations, and business impact. Power Factors manages more than 310 gigawatts of renewables across 70 plus countries. We're deployed with our PPC and EMS solutions in those markets, and we have integrated with more than 80 different TSOs. So that scale gives us a clear view of how markets are evolving, from integrated hybrid in the UK and Germany, for example, to emerging markets still catching up. And Europe is where grid-oriented services are accelerating fastest, so we're excited to speak to you today. So with that, our Unity platform, just really quick, spans the full renewable life cycle. So from monitoring and control, asset performance, operations, and commercial management. And what makes it powerful is that it connects everything: hardware and software, operations and finance, so operators can optimize across the portfolio. And today we're going to zoom in on a critical piece, EMS and VPPs sitting at the intersection of operations and market participation. And with that, let's dive in. So we're going to actually go back one, having a little issue with the back and forth. So in 2025, utility scale storage in Europe will surpass residential for the first time, and that's a tipping point. So storage is becoming a core grid resource. Evangelos, what do you see driving that shift?
Hi, also from my side, thanks a lot, Plaza, for this opportunity, and thank you all for joining. Yes, we're seeing many, let's say, new developments in European market. Obviously, globally, the BESS industry is booming, especially here in Europe. If we exclude the UK, which is one of the most advanced markets, let's say, the rest of the Europe now starting building, let's say, a more mature industry when it comes to storage assets and collocated assets. By now, we have probably from public available data, we have seen that we added around 12 gigawatt hours last year, and by the end of this year we will add more than 29. So grids and renewable penetration is dictating, let's say, the addition of BESS assets. Also, the renewable, let's say, European policy dictates this, and we're seeing that the stability and the congestion of the grids are increasingly and they're quite challenging. So the answer there is to add many BESS assets that will enable, obviously, the grid operators have a more stable grid, and obviously for the developers to have new, let's say, commercial models and new revenue streams. So this is something that we will see following the most advanced markets worldwide. We will also see in Europe, in many countries, to be very, very advanced in the coming years.
Great. Yeah, so let's unpack that, starting with the economics and then the dispatchability and also more on the regulation. Can you kind of take a little bit deeper dive on those elements and the hybrid and co-located BESS being the future and why we need to look ahead?
Of course, yes. I mean, in the BESS industry now, we're seeing that as in the beginning, let's say in the solar industry, like the panels price was is significantly decreased if you compare it with 10 years before. We're also seeing this in the batteries section. Many players are coming now to address their solution. Many Chinese vendors are there that they do, let's say, have EU compatible cybersecurity wise and certification wise products. So we're seeing this industry becoming more, let's say, attractive price wise to build a BESS asset. And obviously the construction and the operational costs are minimized when it comes to a utility scale PV. So collocated assets, if you solve, let's say, the land issues, it's something very quite attractive cost-wise. Revenue-wise, again, it's something really attractive where the developers, the owners of the assets, do have the opportunities in the energy markets to have several revenue streams. Either it is on the ancillary services, the capacity market, the wholesale market, so on and so forth. So all this combined with the improved financing when it comes to comparing a collocated PV BESS asset or a Wind+BESS asset or the three combined together, it is something that it's quite interesting for the developers. Obviously, there are some compelling events when it comes to financial, let's say, and business structure. If you are going to have it as one SPV, if it will be multiple SPVs, so on and so forth. But this is something that we are seeing also the developers are becoming more and more experienced, and they are addressing this in their business models.
Great. Yeah. So projects once seen as risky are now bankable, and policies are not a barrier anymore. In many regions, they're actually a catalyst. So what things that were once a challenge are now becoming a competitive advantage. Great. Let's keep going. So the real question becomes, how do you design and operate renewable assets that are both future-proof and financially viable, whether you're optimizing hybrids at the project level or orchestrating portfolios as VPPs? And we'll answer that with 4 questions. So what outcomes do operators want? What does the grid require? How mature are the markets? And finally, what does an EMS really enable? And that's a lot to unpack in a short amount of time. So let's get into it. Let's start with outcomes. So operators aren't buying technology, they're buying results. So Evangelos, what do they aim to achieve? And let's begin with risk protection.
Yes, at the beginning, I mean, we're seeing several challenges, market-wise and price-wise. We're seeing some many days of negative pricing, for example. So all the owners that they do have wind or standalone wind and PV assets, they need to take care of the negative electricity prices. There was a peak, if I can recall correctly, I don't recall the number of hours, but in Germany they had a negative peak of negative pricing. So addressing, collocating a BESS asset in an existing wind or a PV plant, this creates this secures, let's say, to the owners that they will not need to pay or address any negative electricity pricing issue by charging, the BESS during peak times and while the negative pricing occurs. You can obviously, with the BESS assets, you can again address grid bottlenecks. It's another case that in Europe we are seeing that we're unifying the transmission lines, the grids, etc., but we're not there yet. I mean, there are many bottlenecks also in more advanced countries that needs to be addressed. So this is something that also it's very important to have to avoid any curtailments of your projects. And obviously, when it comes to reliability, having an EMS solution either central for your fleet and obviously locally, it does support the priorities that are needed in order to dispatch your asset in an optimal way.
Yeah, that's about margin protection. It's about avoiding penalties and losses. A project can look great on paper, but if you're losing money in penalties or selling into negative prices, the economics, they collapse. And so the automation makes sure those losses don't creep in. On the other side, it's not just about risk management, Evangelos. It's about also, as you know, creating upside. So where do you see operators capturing new value streams here?
This is the case that we mentioned before about the ancillary services and the capacity markets and the wholesale market. I mean, at the moment, we do not have a unified, let's say, market, as we all know in Europe. And there are some countries that are now thinking of regulating, let's say, their market and adding more revenue streams, even on the ancillary services that are dictated by the RFG here in Europe. And at the end of the day, we're seeing that European countries converge to what is happening to the UK. I mean, the UK, as it is well known, I mean, it was very attractive years now, and they have initiated several revenue streams and stacking of services and also in the balancing market. And at the end of the day, the owners were attracted, let's say, and their business models were very good. That's why also UK has a more advanced, let's say, BESS industry compared to the other European countries.
Great. And that leads us to market maturity. So market maturity looks different across regions. Evangelos, how do you define mature versus emerging markets?
There are two aspects, let's say. One is the market, the energy market itself, and which are the revenue streams that are the owner can have with a BESS asset or a renewable plus BESS asset, a co-located project. But also the challenge here in the maturity of the market in the country, let's say, also comes from the TSOs, the grid operators. There are several cases until now that we're engaging, let's say, with our clients with long-lasting discussions with grid operators of how, for example, a grid operator wants to operate a hybrid asset. It's a usual case. We have seen projects recently that at the end of the day, although the grid specs were dictating a hybrid, let's say, dispatch, at the end of the day, they do not, let's say, utilize this. Maybe they have it in the specs, but there is a lot of room, let's say, of improvement on the grid operator side and obviously on the grid connection procedures. This is something that we are seeing at the moment, and we're engaged. We're in the happy position, let's say, as Power Factors. We're engaging from projects now in Portugal that it's starting, let's say, the BESS investments and have some BESS assets there, up to Lithuania, for example, for some co-located projects.
Yeah, and that maturity gap between mature markets and emerging markets, it really matters, because in markets where hybrids are recognized, you can stack revenue and scale projects faster. Things become easier as you have the infrastructure, but in the less mature markets, developers need to plan for regulatory uncertainty, and that can slow adoption and change financing pictures. So Europe is poised to is very well positioned. And so depending on where you operate, you're either playing in the market that enables hybrids today, or you're preparing for the rules to evolve tomorrow. So that's the reality operators need to factor into their strategy. All right, so moving on, we're going to talk about grid requirements, everyone's favorite topic. Evangelos, what do developers need to prepare for when connecting hybrids?
Yes, here, as I mentioned before, it's the first point here is the first step here is to define how the grid operator wants to dispatch the asset, how it's the, let's say, the connection agreements, which are the control points. We do have several, let's say, countries in Europe now, for example. It is clear to them that even if you have co-located projects as different, let's say, SPVs dispatched separately, and at the end of the day, the grid operators on the HV side or on the substation side at the point of their connection, they want to control the reactive power control, and the voltage control is happening on the point of their connection, and the active power control on the MV side on the connection of its assets. So if we're talking about co-located projects, this is something that needs to be defined in the very beginning of the development of the project. We are seeing that the grid operators now, it's the new trend. Everyone is discussing about black start, inertia, POD. I mean, these discussions are also involved, let's say, the PCS capabilities that the PCS vendors need to provide, let's say, the grid forming element when it comes to the black start or islanding capabilities of a co-located or the best side, let's say, of a co-located or a hybrid asset. So these are things that are getting more and more stricter, not only on our side, on the EMS side, but also on the PCS side, and also the response times are getting more and more advanced, let's say, following other countries globally that for many years now there were many very demanding course, in Europe, we have Ireland, for example. It is quite demanding in terms of response times. And another very, very important aspect when it comes to grid integration and the grid operator requirements is also the cybersecurity and the compliance to several, let's say, cybersecurity standards like IEC 62443 or the NIS2 requirements that we have here in Europe established, and all the countries have it in their local legislation.
Yeah, and this point is critical because obviously compliance is not optional. If you miss these requirements, you're exposed to penalties and even curtailment. But if you design with standards and cybersecurity in mind up front, it becomes a competitive advantage. And so, like, you know, projects connect faster, you avoid downtime, and you gain the trust of the off-takers and the financiers. So with grid operator requirements, it may feel like a hurdle, but really they're a foundation for building bankable, scalable projects. All right. So far, we've talked about economics, outcomes, and grid requirements. Let's make it real. What does an EMS actually allow operators to do in practice? Evangelos,
yes, here
over to you.
we can provide from our side. I mean, as you are aware, Power Factors is an end-to-end, let's say, a company that can provide an end-to-end solution starting from the edge controller on the SCADA side at the field up to several APM solutions and advanced analytics, etc. Our EMS is providing, let's say, that we provide in either BESS or co-located projects, renewable plus batteries, etc. Does guarantee, let's say, the grid compliance, and obviously guarantees also the maximization of the revenue of all the owners. So here you see that we can provide the EMS and our PPC on the local on the plant level, which in order to control all the renewable assets, we usually here just highlight that the wind, let's say, PPC is usually provided by the O&M provider by the wind farm. We can provide the hybrid and the EMS controlling all the slave or second level, let's say, PPCs. We can provide the real-time control down to millisecond level, which is very, very important to grid compliance. And many, let's say, grid operators do require a very, very fast and accurate response. And we can provide our also central EMS. Here it's important to analyze that the central EMS is not just the monitor, let's say, or a centralized fleet level view of your assets or one asset or multiple asset. The central EMS does provide several capabilities of a VPP integrating with route to market, other third-party aggregators. We can provide the dispatching section module of our central EMS, which can integrate with any third-party aggregator and dispatch, let's say, the commands and the schedules locally to the local EMS system and the PPC. And we can also provide our optimizer, which is a more advanced, let's say, module that can continuously optimize, discharge the batteries, and continuously optimize the hybrid asset based on the logic or the inbuilt logic, as well as on the forecast that we're receiving from other, let's say, systems like a power forecast that it is provided by third-party vendors. The central EMS here also can provide functionalities that have massive, let's say, the portfolio level when we are integrated with a price forecasting, and you know that next day, for example, between the 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock, you will have negative pricing. to automatically dispatch commands to do the necessary actions on site in order to avoid having any impact from the negative pricing. So this is enabled at the end of the day. The EMS gives a full control to the owners in order to be compliant with the grid and the PPAs and the requirements of the project itself, but also maximizing their revenues.
Great. And now let's bring it down to a concrete example. I know we want to have some time for questions, so we'll skip ahead a little bit. Here we have two sites, one solar and one with storage, and one wind with storage. Let's see if we can get that. There we go. All right. Evangelos, can you explain further the goals of this project and also move into how EMS makes a project like this possible?
Exactly. This is a project, a real-time, let's say, a real case scenario and project outside Europe, but we selected to present it here in order to understand our capabilities and what we are seeing also in other places around the world. So this is one contracted asset, which is composed by two decent hybrid plants. So we have one PV BESS and one Wind+BESS. So here the need is to obviously to meet the PPA commitments, have a problem-free integration with the TSO and avoid any penalties. For this case, the TSO does apply penalties if the difference on the declared capacities, if there are differences in the declared capacities. And at the end of the day, the goal here is to maximize the revenues from the energy exported to the grid while minimizing the curtailment of the renewable. This is usually the case in all the hybrid assets. You need to minimize the renewable curtailment. And obviously here you need to address several, let's say, advanced techniques and EMS logic in order to have priorities on between the two renewable assets, take into consideration the battery cycles, the state of health, or any other, let's say, objectives for availability, maintenance purposes, etc.
Okay. All right, let's look and see what questions we have coming in, just because we are running out of time. Let's see here. Evangelos, do you expect utility scale storage to overtake residential everywhere, or is that unique to Europe? It's a good question based on the first question that we addressed.
Yes, we are seeing this everywhere. So it's something that it's not unique to Europe. I mean, there are other countries that they are building multi-gigawatt or gigawatt-hour, let's say, projects from Middle East to Australia and to Northern America, USA and Canada. So yes, it's not a European thing. I mean, the grid wants to have as soon as we are evolving and building more and more renewable assets, you need to have batteries in order to stabilize this and have avoid any weak grid, let's say, issues and penetrations.
Great. I see another one here for you. I'll give this one to you as well. It's more, let's see. Okay, which are the what are the differences between PV and BESS and Wind and BESS co-locations when it comes to power factors solution?
Interesting. Yes. I mean, from our solution, the only difference, the basic difference when it comes to wind and BESS is that we do not provide, for example, the wind PPC, as I mentioned before. Functionality-wise, we do not have any, let's say, limitation, technical limitation or critical difference on our side. We can provide the hybrid VPC, the local EMS that can manage any combination of the renewable and the battery asset. The difference there is, at the end of the day, some difference may arise in terms of the country and the limitations that they may have on the PV or wind, let's say, dispatch. But from our side, it's exactly the same.
Great. We also have what makes Power Factor's approach different from other EMS and VPP solutions. Do you want me to take that, or do you want to take that?
Yes, you can address it.
Okay. So I'll restate a few of the things from the beginning, just because to put a fine point on them. But scale is number one. So we're managing over 310 gigawatts of renewables across 70 countries. So we're integrated in more than 80 TSOs. That global footprint gives us the unmatched visibility into what's working across markets. So our expertise is the breadth and depth of our expertise goes very deep. So also independence. So we are a vendor agnostic provider. So our EMS is built to work across different OEMs, and that flexibility protects operators from lock-in, but it also allows us to bring a bunch of different disparate systems together. And I'll say, just leave it here, also EMS and VPPs aren't standalone for us. They're part of Unity. So our broader renewable energy management platform means operators can optimize at both the asset and the portfolio level with one connected view. So there's probably 15 other reasons I could list, but for the sake of time, we'll leave that there. So in closing, I just want to say thank you for all the great questions and for spending time with us today. And thank you to Nicola and Solarplaza. If there's one takeaway, it's this: optimizing hybrids and co-located BESS and orchestrating them as VPPs. It's not just about the technology. Together, they're transforming the business model for renewable energy, and EMS is the enabler that makes it possible for operators to compete on both reliability and profitability. So we're excited to continue the conversation. Please reach out if you'd like to explore how we can support your projects. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amanda and Evangelos. It's been a pleasure to having you, and thank you also to the audience online. If you would like to continue the conversation, don't forget to check out the website of Solarplaza Asset Management Europe in Prague, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.